Hey everybody, this is KRETT with Incredible Air Guns of Georgia. I've had several people ask me how to power up their Kral NP-03 because they are, as all Krals are, just a little bit underpowered out of the box. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown on the easiest ways I know of to get more power out of your Krals. And this will work with all of them, not just the NP-03. They're all basically the same block and the same gun, just in a different wrapping. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to take an Allen key. You're going to remove this bolt right here. That's going to free your stock from the rest of the gun. It just comes out like that. Set this aside. Now, of course, for safety, we want to make sure that the gun is not loaded and the air is depleted. Then, I've already gotten a little bit of this taken apart so as to save time. Get this back in here. Okay. Then you're going to have your spring guide and adjustment for spring tension, hammer spring tension. It's going to be right here. So just get a flathead screwdriver and remove that. Once you get that out, your spring's going to come out, and you're going to, this is going to come out of there, and then you're going to have a screw right here. That's just a little bitty screw. It's like this, and you can get it with a flathead screwdriver as well. Then you're going to pull your hammer out, and it's going to look like this. That's where your screw goes, so in relationship to the gun, that's where your screw hole should line up when you put it back in. This little slot right here is going to catch your cocking mechanism, which comes back right there. See down in here. That little bar looking thing is really just a screw. It slides back when you pull the hammer back and catches this slot and pulls your hammer back. Now what's happening when you do that is you're going to be, spring is going to be sitting in here, and your tensioner is going to be here. So when you cock your gun, all of this has got to cram up in there. So the more you increase, or the more you tighten this up, turn to the right, the more pre-tension it's going to put on that spring. It's going to push it in further. Then when you go to pull your lever back to cock it, the hammer is going to pull back, and it's all going to be crammed up in there. And what happens is you get too much cramming in here, you don't have enough room, and your sear won't lock and hold your hammer back. So first thing I would do is inspect your factory hammer spring. Some of them are firm enough that you can use the same spring over. If at all possible, if you can, get some other springs that are similar in size. They don't have to be exact, but it's necessary for this to go inside whatever spring you use. You might be able to find one that's the same size, just a little stiffer. Maybe one's not quite as stiff, that's a little longer, that would work for you. You're just going to have to test this out yourself. There's no exact size I can tell you to use. But if you go with a larger diameter spring, you're going to have to do a little bit of modification on your hammer. As you see, this spring is just not going to go. It's too big. But yet, this spring which is a good deal bigger in the outside diameter than the factory spring, will go down in there. But it's not going to help you if you can't get it inside of here as far down as it is cut deep. Now, I do also take, and I have a lathe, so I put this in the lathe and I go in with a cutter and cut this wall here a little thinner to allow for a fatter spring. And then very carefully I try to cut the hole a little deeper, but you have to be careful. If you look right there, you can see light through that. If you go much further than that, you are endangering your hammer not being able to function properly when it catches the rod there that slides it back to cock it. So just be careful, don't go too deep. Every little bit helps, but you don't have to go an extreme amount to get a great improvement in your power. Now, as I said, this spring is very close to the factory spring size, but it's just about 3 times as stiff. And I've gone in deeper. Then you take your tensioner, and this piece right here that is just the guide for the spring to come back and coil around so it doesn't jam up and wad up in there. What I do is put it in the lathe, and you can do this with a belt sander or a piece of sanding paper or a file, a hacksaw, just whatever you do. Make sure you clean up your edges that are rough when you get through. But if you notice here, I've taken close to half of the length off of the tensioner. And what that does is that allows just a little bit more room for it to wad up back here. And it's okay if when it gets cocked, the spring's not perfectly straight coiled around this. If it gets in there, and you're not going to be able to see it, but if it gets in there and it's bent up a little bit when it's cocked, it's not going to hurt anything. You just don't want it to be bent slap into. And you're going to find when you're tuning this that there's a definite line that once you cross it, you will not be able to cock your gun. So you'll have to adjust this in and out until you find that sweet spot, and then test fire your gun and see if you've got your accuracy. You might have to back it off a little bit further from where it actually will be the furthest in and lock the sear. You might have to come back and back the power off a little bit more to get your accuracy, where you want it. But you're going to be increasing your power, and with everything you increase, something else is going to decrease. So just fiddle around with it. You'll find the right spot. So you can take a little bit off this. I wouldn't go any more than half. Leave yourself enough post there for that spring to wad around. And you can take a little bit off this inside diameter to make it accommodate a fatter spring if you're going to use a fatter spring, or a little bit of the depth off. The main thing is to get more stiffness in your spring, not so stiff that you can't budge it. This is about as far as I can compress that one, which is about all you're going to need. You can even, if you've got a lathe and know what you're doing there, you can even take just a slight bit off this end, only on this lip right here, and that's going to allow this to hit the valve and in essence hit it and be able to push it farther in just a little bit more, because what happens is you hit your valve stem here with this part when the hammer slams after you pull the trigger, and it presses that valve stem in, allowing air to come out, but it also stops against this edge right here on the inside of the gun. So if you take a little bit of that edge off, it'll go in just a little bit further, and therefore giving you a longer stroke and hopefully allowing more air to come out during the shot. So after we've removed everything, done all of our altercations, we're going to drop our hammer back in, and this slot will go towards the top of the gun like so. that's going to leave your hole for your screw to come on that side slot. And you can go ahead and put that screw back in. Right when you put your hammer in, be careful not to lose that little bugger. I'm kind of doing this video quickly, and as you can tell, without proper work area, mainly because I had a couple people view my NP-03 powered up video, and they wanted to know how to do it. So I'm hoping this is going to give them everything they need to tackle this job themselves. But as usual, if you need me to do it, there's a price we can agree on, I'm sure. All right, when we get that screwed in, all that does is that just stops your hammer from coming back any farther than it's supposed to when you cock the gun. Now, your gun is going to be cocked because we didn't have a way to decock it. There was no spring pressure to it. See, and right now we can pull the trigger and nothing, excuse me, safety off. Nothing's going to happen. It's because there's no spring tension to push the hammer forward when we pull the trigger and release the sear. So if you'll just put a little pressure on it with your thumb and pull the trigger, you can get it to close back down there, and you're not going to be pushing it hard enough to open up the valve. And make sure your spring falls down in there and gets halfway centered. Make sure that you line your guide up so that it'll go through the center, and you might even want to do this way. You might want to put the guide on the spring on the guide there first, and then get it started screwing in. By the way, this is a 22 caliber Kral NP-03. And as I'm sure you're aware of by now, it fills to 200 bar. And this is what we're doing here is going to allow us to fill it to a higher pressure. Because I believe every gun that I've ever encountered has a fill pressure written on it somewhere, and that is not because you are at risk or in danger if your air cylinder is filled to a higher pressure, but mostly because the gun's mechanics are not set up to allow the hammer spring to force the hammer forward into the valve stem hard enough to open up the valve beyond that pressure. So in other words, they are feeling safe that at 200 bar fill, the hammer spring that it comes equipped with and the setting that they have done on it from the factory is enough to overcome the pressure that that valve stem is holding and allow it to open it, thus getting your air to come out for your shot and then seal back closed. But if you have more hammer spring power and pushing the hammer harder, you can hit the valve, open up the valve when it's under more pressure, and, well, you'll see the results. You get the idea. It's kind of like, the more you push the gas pedal, the faster you go. Well, the harder you push the hammer spring, the more air you get to come out, because it's going to hit harder, hold open longer, and allow more air to come out for each shot. Okay, so now that we've got that back in, you've got to start on your own to find where that sweet spot is. You can start tightening it up. Start about flush with the back of the gun and see if you can cock it. And we can. So I'm going to let that, excuse me, I'm going to just decock that. And I'm going to turn, I normally start with going around a full turn until I see I've gone too far. And just keep going around until you can no longer get the gun to cock. should be over. So, nope, still cock it. All right, that should be uncockable. Okay, see there, we're not locking back, not getting cocked. So once you reach that point, start backing it up a half turn at a time. And we see right there, I got it cocked. And there's a sight of how deep you are into the back of the gun. That's a good 1/4 of an inch, give or take. So now, we'll decock that. And we'll put our gun back in the stock. Oops, sorry about that. Put our 1 screw back in there. And if you see my field pressure, I am no longer filling to 200 bar, I'm filling to 300 bar. And if your NP-03 is of 22 caliber and you got it out of the box and we're getting pitiful results from 12 to 20 foot-pounds, which I don't think 20 is seen very often, maybe 18 if you're lucky. If you were disappointed with that and did this little procedure yourself, we'll see what the improvement is. And get my magazine. I'm firing Kral Arms Diablo Field heavies. They're 18 grains. And here's what we will get. Go. That shot at a full field was 864 feet per second. That's leveled out to 829.88 foot-pounds of energy. And then our second shot. Nope, did not register. Try that again. All right. Been my luck today, folks. There we go. Now we're up to 31.18 foot-pounds of energy at 883 feet per second. 3161 at 889. 3149 at 887. And that was all the ammo I had in my magazine. But I'm sure you get the point. You're going to get more shots naturally. You're going to get more powerful shots, hopefully. And you're going to improve the accuracy a great deal, especially 50 yards and better. I hope this was easy enough for you to follow. I hope you're able to accomplish this on your own. I hope you'll continue to watch my videos and subscribe to my channel. And maybe one day I'll have some help so we can get some more videos out here and me be able to accomplish all the other things that I do. Thanks a lot for watching, subscribing. Have a good day. Any questions? Leave them in the comments below.